while we're looking at the piece, I will do some introductions. This is kind of perfect and give you a sense. I'm glad everybody could be here tonight. We may have some people kind of come in as we're moving. Switch to speaker view. And I think everybody's been muted. So if you're going to be speaking, make sure you unmute yourself. But if you switch to speaker view, and I'm going to do the same thing right now. There we go. You'll see who's highlighted at any given time and sort of see what's being talked about. So that'll help our system to work tonight. So Jennifer Reif, who's behind the camera, is the brains behind this exhibition that's been going on for a number of years at Laramie County Library. And it's been fantastic to be involved in a different role in the past. And it's really exciting to be the curator this year. And we have the exhibition traveling from the Laramie County Library as well this year. Carrie Hartman, who was introduced a minute ago when she jumped on, has been a big supporter to make this happen. So, yay, thank you, Carrie. And Court and Christy are also folks at the Laramie County Library. And Christy is helping with making this happen. And she's in charge of foundations. So she's pulling up people tonight, and Court's our IT person. So they're kind of people behind the scenes tonight. Folks who are attending, as questions come up, bubble to the surface here. If you've seen the exhibition, I'll make it even easier. Feel free to ask. We're going to have some images of the exhibition pop up. We have some still images of people. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the artists who I know are with us. And if somebody's joined since we got started, let me know. And each one of you will pop up on the screen. So you'll see the people who you'll hear from later tonight. So we have Sue Summers, and Sue's here in Wyoming. We have Andrea Prisgotsky, and she's in Adelaide, Australia. We have Louise Taylor. And Louise, I don't even know the name of the town you live in Yorkshire.
It's well, it's not a town, it's a village.
There we go. Well, she's here from a distance as well.
Hello, County Durham.
Alicia Bailey from Denver. Cerise Vaden from most of the time from Arizona, but is currently living in Idaho in the summers. Valpexton, who's here in Laramie. Marnie Powers-Torrey, and she's in Salt Lake. And I think that's all that's here. Did I miss anyone?
And Mark, I lost my spotlighting.
Oh,
the different artists as you were saying them. I didn't get her done. So
okay. Well,
I'm sorry. All these.
Well, here, we'll see who's speaking, and maybe that will help you to pop people up. I'm going to give the artist the first question here. And again, folks who are just joining us, just feel free to either put the question that you might have in the chat, or I'll prompt you in if you'd like to jump in and just ask the question. You'd be free to do that too. And I'm going to read my question here. A surprise for me as the curator was the materiality as a theme throughout the exhibition. We have books that are objects, books that incorporate objects, books that document objects, books that embrace paper and binding, that have strong book qualities. And so my questions for you, are you aware of this in your own work? Were these conscious decisions? And what might you think that indicates to have so much materiality in books? And you can have a conversation amongst yourself. If somebody says something and you'd like to jump in and add to it, or if maybe you have a different thought about it, feel free to add that too. And if you don't answer, I'm going to jump in and pick on a couple of you. But that applied to really everyone. Val, since I can see you, I'm going to ask you. Val, book, and we'll see the book maybe pop up here. Court can pull up Val Pexton's books. There's Val. And hopefully we can see one of her books here in a minute. Valpexton has made some books about objects in washes, in arroyos, and about water. And you really fulfill a number of those things. Your book is about objects, but it's also very material.
Yeah, this one that you're looking at, the first one, water, I have to admit, I think that book, first of all, I was, playing with a new way of opening the book and then having the pages interweave. But I have to admit, I had bought that paper, and so the book came from the paper that I bought.
Okay.
Which often when bookmaking, book art is something that I do when I have time. There's so many beautiful books in this exhibit, and I realize that there are people who get to spend way more time on this than I do. But so the paper sort of started that, and then I have a bit of an obsession with water and the things that are left behind by water. So that's what this second little book was about. And this one is, I just discovered alcohol inks. So this came from me messing around with alcohol ink and realizing that it's even more so than watercolor as a medium, imitates water in some really interesting ways. And so that's why I used that for the cover. And then I had taken these photos. I was up in Cody a few years ago and there had been a flood, and then these were just photos, super up close photos of things that I had seen in the creek bed that were left behind. And so I just did some pencil drawings, and then decided that I wanted to make something that would hang vertically. You could hang it on the wall. So the first book is more book-like, and this one is more like a piece of artwork that you could hang on the wall. Does that answer your question at all, Mark?
It does. And I'm just going to jump from, and I'll tell everybody that Val's primarily a writer. I am going to jump to Louise, simply because Louise also has given us something that's kind of an unusual book structure, and it's about a lot of objects. And so again, the questions that I asked on there was, are you aware of the materiality in your work? Was it a conscious decision? And what might all of this materiality indicate? So do you want to tell us a little bit about the book, Louise?
Yeah, well, I guess it was the subject matter that shaped the book, really. So the photographs within the book are all photographs that I've taken of things that my dad collected. When I say collected, he was just a really organised hoarder. He died about 8 years ago now, and he left myself and my family an enormous task, trawling through his treasures. So he was incredibly organised, and I wanted to make a book that reflected that. So I wanted it to be quite, indexical, where you could pull out the filing cards, I guess you'd call them. So I just experimented with quite a few sort of book forms that fitted that bill, really. And then the nice little happy accident was it opening up as a book the other way around, like you saw the pictures there. But yeah, I had to experiment a bit with the materials, because I'm not really a book artist, I guess. So it was a really good experience just working my way through it, really.
So Louise, you identify as, if you have to give yourself a single hat, you're primarily a photographer.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so
I think it's really important, like whether it's an exhibition or a book, I think it's really important to present the work just in the right context, really.
But you've done a lot of things with display. I mean, I'm thinking about some of the work that you did with hunting images on the sacks that were hung, and the skins on trailers. Or you've done a lot of things with alternative sorts of display. And actually, for Sue, Louise is part of a collective called Wide-Eyed. Sue is part of a Pipeline, Wyoming group. So you two might want to connect on that level too. So Louise works both ways.
Thank you.
And Sue says, if you've made book art, you qualify as a book artist. I think I'm there. Yeah, these are certainly books, and that's going to take us to another question. I've got one more person to hit up on this. Marnie, And I'm so glad you're here to speak to this one too. Marnie, you were probably the one that surprised me the most. There were people who fit different identities. I thought, oh, I want to make sure I've got somebody who works with type, and I want to make sure somebody who works with maybe more traditional codexes. And so Marnie was my more traditional codex and a letterpress person. And lo and behold, we got some letterpress in there, but it was not what I expected at all, which was kind of fantastic. It's nice to be surprised in those kinds of ways. So Marnie, oh, and that's right, we have some other images from you too of process. So tell us a little bit about the process, because it seems so important. I mean, you clearly thought about the materiality of this from the beginning.
Well, it was born, the project, which is ongoing, is born from the materials, definitely. I mean, literally and conceptually, the boxes are built around found objects. And I've, probably like many people, have been combing for objects for years and collecting and not knowing exactly what I wanted to do with them. So these boxes do present both found objects in nature as well as man-made objects. So kind of like urban street combing, I suppose. As far as the process goes, process is really important to me, maybe even more so than the product at times. But these found objects were found. That was a single day of finds just on my walk from work to the bus. So I was pretty excited about this photo. It probably doesn't have the same resonance to others, but so each of these objects is then taken and mounted type high. So that's 0.918 inches, and I use those boards to sandwich them and make them the exact height. And essentially they're collagraphs. So the letterpress elements here are those man-made objects. And then the text is actually typewritten because there's only one of. And there are artists who bother with letterpress for a single copy, but I'm not one of them. That's really funny that I was your traditionalist. So yeah. Hope I didn't disappoint.
No, it's just great that you kind of took one role and took it clear to the other side. So, and really wonderful when we were putting it up, there was a man that's a frequent flyer at the library apparently, and he came through when we were installing, and you know, how is that a book? And so it was like, oh dear, I feel like I'm being tested, but it was good. So you had people asking questions.
Do you think, Jennifer, could you go down to where Marnie's art is displayed? Because it's just lovely in our library. The way they've hung it is just stunning. So maybe Jennifer could run downstairs, and then as we continue, we can.
Perfect. She can jump back in again. And I just saw that Tony Mosley showed up. So Tony, I'm going to have, here's the question. And Tony from New Zealand, yay. Welcome, Tony. Tony's flight from New Zealand and Colorado. So she covers both bases, and it makes her speak funny. So Tony, we were talking about materiality, about how so much of the exhibition is very material, and that some of the books were, you know, about paper and binding, some document objects like Louise's, some really incorporate objects. And again, yours was very much, even this one was about the experience of opening that box. So the lid on the top, you open it and those two things fall. I thought I broke it actually, even though I knew what was going to happen. It was like, oh, it opens and then all the little bits fall out. So you also have a book, and I don't know, there we go, that has string running through it. And so you're very aware as you move through time, you're also, you know, you're having to kind of peel it back. The thread literally threads through the book. So my question for everybody was, were you aware of that materiality? Was it a conscious decision? And what might this indicate? You know, for you, what was the thinking with making something that was so physical? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
No,
I'm here. I'm here now.
For me, I think books as a printmaker, it is my play zone. So I think often I have them be more material and object-like because it allows for me to really push my creativity without feeling within a two-dimensional realm. So I can really push it. And I love the idea of, maybe I should go back, step back. The tongue-tied one, it sort of ties back to a series of books that Alicia will remember that all tie with where I've used thread a lot to tie in the content as well as the experience. And so this was just another chance for me to push it even further and become something physical, serious, and funny, because I mean, we've all felt tongue-tied, including myself a little bit right this very second. So, and so the idea of the book is that, you can't open it because there is that physical tongue-tied where, it's a physical, where your tongue is like stuck and they have to surgically fix it, as well as when we can't find our words and and you can't say things the way you want to. And so the book itself, you only see parts of the text and you're unable to access everything you want. And the piece that falls out, the box, I think that one, I came up with the idea of the box and I got real excited before I had the content. So sometimes I love that for books because I get to really like push my skill and have a lot of fun within the work itself.
This is a little like Val's. This is like Val talking about. I had this great paper, and it kind of led to the book. That you had the box, and then it developed. Yeah, this is great. Yeah. And we just had a message that Jennifer is down with Marnie's work, so we'll let her pop on and show us Marnie's work. And this will also maybe give you a sense of some of the curation. So the way the library is set up for folks who haven't been there, there's a big entryway, and so there's places where some of the books are in cases you can see on both sides. And so I tried to sort of have things ask questions. In this particular case is by the elevator. So we have Marnie's work there, and we also have Tony's work there. A lot of our really material things are there, or we actually have a book in there from Maria. And I don't know if Maria's on here tonight or not, and there's Louise's, and we have, and we pulled a couple of the photos out, Louise, so it was easier to see them. But we also have some, and there's Tony's books down there. And Joseph has a very small book that's very intimate, and there was the best place to put it, to have that sense of paper and intimacy and not have it out where it could be handled. And we have Maria Lee's book, and we have the Kayla's, and I don't know if Kayla's on here, her fortune cookies. So a lot of our material things that were particularly fragile or delicate or invite a close inspection were placed there. It was kind of, it's horrible to curate. I think about those curators that do horrible things with your work that you didn't intend, but I tried to make some connections that I felt were there in your work and statement with who you were housed with, especially since we had these sorts of islands of books that are there. And I'm not seeing any questions. So people are either being shy or I'm not seeing them. So I'm looking here just one more time to see if I see any questions. No, if you have questions, either chat them or jump in. I'll leave a space right here. If anybody would like to speak and ask a question. Otherwise, I've got tons of questions.
I was just going to say that the book where you open it and the things fall out reminds me of flash fiction, how flash fiction works. As a writer, that is sort of a kind of visual depiction for me of what flash fiction is like. You
Tell us more about flash fiction, Val.
Well, flash fiction, depending on who you ask, is a story that is anything less than 1,000, or for some folks, less than 500 words. So it's just a super short piece of fiction. As you try to create a story that sort of comes at you all at once. And I just liked how that, when you were talking about how even though you knew that was going to happen when you took the top off, that things were going to sort of tumble out. And it's small. And I just thought it just looks like a sort of visual depiction of flash fiction to me.
Okay, so both Tony and Mark Snyder gave us books that you can't access the interior, but you kind of want to. Mark Snyder had a book that has 2 books, but one's closed, and it's a group of maple seeds that are bolted together. And I have to wonder, and I haven't asked Mark yet, are there things on the inside if I take it apart? And there we go. And there is a plant there. We had to go out and get a plant outside the library to put in there. He didn't send a plant. And Jennifer has to water the plant. You guys created the Hell exhibition for Jennifer, which is kind of wonderful too. And then he has another book that opens up and pivots. But like Tony, and so this one we get to see, so we the 2 together give you a hint of what might be on the inside of the other. And I think with Tony's, I wanted to undo those and open them up, but I was fearful if I did that, I would never get them back together again. So I didn't. So Tony, are there things on the inside of those little books?
Ooh, to be honest, no.
Oh, okay. Well, you could have said it's a secret. That would have been fine.
Well, it was more because it was really because the project was all about this these lost volumes of books, and so they don't know the content of all of them because they're lost. So that is the idea, is that it's a discovery, but we don't always know what's inside, because the book, sorry, I'm going to have to go back and look something up. But yeah, so the idea is that there was 16 volumes and they discovered one. I randomly came across this random article, as artists do. And then of course I'm inspired. So they found one volume in a library in Copenhagen that they didn't know they had. And this led to this whole story. They were all excited because basically Christopher Columbus's illegitimate son took on this insane project to collect and read all the books that were written at the time. And it was a collection of snippets of what each story was about. And so if they had all of them, they would know more about what books were being written at the time. And so that's the idea. So yeah, so I'm terribly sorry to disappoint you, but they're empty.
I get disappointed all the time. That's not a bad disappointment. Nancy has a question, so I'm going to turn it over to Nancy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for letting me ask my question. I'm sorry, my screen off, but I'm doing the evening juggle of cooking dinner while I'm listening to y'all.
That's great.
But the thing I noticed, and I know that there's a lot more artists that are in the exhibit than are here with us, but the thing I noticed about the ones that spoke is that there's a close association between books and then finding things. Like Val has the things after the rain, and Tony has a thing where the person who interacts with her art finds it. Like when you opened it, the things fell out. And then the other artist that had the things that were found in her, Louise, the things that were found in her father's house. And so it's like, at least in this little mini collection, there's an interesting association between books and finding things that have been left behind. And I just was wondering if anyone would comment on that affiliation. So this is really fun and I'm having a great time listening. So thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Hi, this is Andrea from Adelaide. I found my box of slides, which I turned into a book, on a rubbish heap in my neighbour's yard, and she was throwing out all her memories. And I just thought that that was something quite strange for me, who wants to keep memories. And so I grabbed this box of slides, and it was her trip to Greece. And I've been holding on to this for ages. And yes, so this is a found thing. And when I saw this, thinking about building my book to send all the way overseas, right, I need something tiny and compact. This will be perfect. this will be simple. This will be something really quick and easy to make. No, not really. 27 different images I ended up making, but it was about blending these found memories with my own memories. And so, yes, it is a very, very found object, and I've rehabbed all the slides. There was biro ink all over the slides and stickers, and I had to clean them all and work out a way to clean them. So, yeah, it was a huge process, really, to create that.
I have a comment about the archival and collecty kind of nature. I kind of think that as books have become, I wouldn't say obsolete, but everybody's kind of thinking about books as a obsolete technology in a lot of ways. They're kind of almost, there's something about them that is inherently about archive and memory. I'm not saying this very well, but you know, they have stories in them. They're, you know, they come in volumes. You put them on shelves and you look at them, and
that ties into your work, definitely.
Well, in this case,
this is Sue's piece here.
I was gifted. Actually, I found the encyclopedia thing. I found an edition of encyclopedias that were printed the year I was born, and I had to have them, and then I had to mess with them. So that's what this piece is about. But I'm not really a collector of little objects and things. This piece, I had a four-sided spiral notebook I had designed, and I thought about narrative and about the themes I've been exploring with misogyny and testosterone. And so this explored kind of a delving into, you know, going back and forth between a spectrum of the human man and the bull. And so that was kind of the story it was telling as you unfold the sides. But I wouldn't consider this really part of the archive tradition. It's something a little different.
Well, I want to come back to the antiquated technology. That's one of my questions. And that's an Andrea thing, and that's also a Sue thing. But I want to see if anybody else wants to speak to the question from Nancy about found, things found, about where that might come from, the shared connection.
I would just say that as someone who writes stories, at least partly for my living, and teaches other people how to write stories, I just think, you know, narrative and storytelling, that's kind of what it is, right? It's gathering stuff. You gather stuff and then you organize it into something that tells a story.
So you think the theme for the exhibition may have helped prompt some of that? It may not be about books. It may be about this exhibition having the title prompt of.
I just think books in general, that's our association with a book, right? Is that it is going to, it has a narrative. It's going to tell us some story. And so in order to tell that story, you're going to gather stuff that helps you tell the story. And so, and then I think when you broaden it out to book arts, and then, yeah, to the theme of this exhibition, it's a way to sort of add the texture to those stories. But to me, that's, you know, as soon as you say book, I think story, as a writer especially. But as also as an artist, this is just I think this is making these things and calling them a book, combines two of the things that human beings have always done, which is look for stuff, keep it somewhere, and put it together somewhere to make a story.
This takes us back to Louise. We've had a question in the chat to Louise, and Louise answered it, but I wondered if you could talk about this. The question was how long it took to, you know, document, and were some things, was there editing in the process? Because you have 3 volumes, right, Louise, in the books?
Yeah, can I just agree with Valerie for a minute there. Part of the process of making my book involved, you know, photographing these treasures, and uncovering the story of the things that my dad collected. And some of the things we, as a family, we were aware of, and some of the things, like, I don't know if you can see my screen as well. Some of the things like this is like, it's every cigar wrapper that he ever smoked. I mean, just the weirdest things my dad had saved. And credit cards from like 1973. It's just the weirdest thing to keep hold of. And we had no idea that he was, maybe he was autistic, I don't know. But he just kept all this stuff. So yeah, the whole, that process is kind of a slightly different process to making the book and deciding on the structure and the vessel, as it were. And I can't remember the second point now, sorry.
Did you edit? Did you have to like say,
yeah, well, actually, I don't think this is the finished article, if I'm totally honest, because I think I photographed lots of the drawers, which is like the pictures like within the, you know, the file, and I think the final version of this book will have a better edit of those drawers, because not all of them are beautiful.
You know what, I'm hearing you as a photographer, this idea of going back and revisiting the same negatives of the same source and redoing something is common. That's true with printmaking, and we have a number of printmaking folks involved in this. I know that's true for me as well. I have the same blocks that fed my work are producing other things right now. So yeah, I think that that's really common, that things don't happen for a lot of us in one iteration, especially printmaking and photography. I'm going to move to a different question here. We live in a digital age. What's the role of the book in the 21st century, especially the artist book? I will add that it's ironic that we have books that use digital technology to bring us back to an analog book. And I didn't even know that Val took photos to make the drawings. And I'm thinking about Louise, Ian, and Tony with this kind of digital analog. We also have books that speak to antiquated technology with Maureen and Andrea and Nick. And I don't know if Nick and Maureen have joined us at all. Maureen, are you there? Nope. And Nick? No. Maybe could we show Maureen's, since on the chat something came up about handling Andrea's work. Maureen sent strips. She's primarily a filmmaker, and she sent film strips, like analog film strips, in pieces that could be moved around on a light table. And so that you get these little snippets of a visual story that can be rearranged to kind of change the narrative or sequence. And they actually, I think, come from very different sources, but she wanted you to touch these. And I don't think of this as particularly strange, but I know there are people who, because we had some people say, what is that? So clearly this is not familiar to everyone. This is antiquated, like the slides, Andrea's slides. And maybe, let's see, Nick gave us, he has recordings, so he has records in the book. So there are records, so there are sounds and there are images. So if we could look at Nick Satinover's work really quickly and see those. And then Andrea will get to speak to the antiquated technology again. And I know there were some questions about that as well. So we have things, he does a lot of things with Xerox machines. So he's using recently antiquated technology, and then spiral binding. So a little like Sue's, and Sue's sort of in that group too. And I also put with that same question, are using antiquated technology in the making, Joseph just making such traditional books, or Marnie with the letterpress on her boxes, or Kayla with her letterpress work. So could go to Andrea's really quickly, and Andrea, could you speak to the antiquated technology? Because I think, and I'm looking over here, we had somebody asked a question specifically or sort of made a comment about the antiquated technology. You guys are chatty on the chat. There's a lot of chat to go through over here.
Yeah, that's something that I'm kind of struck by as well with, you know, we're living in such a hugely digital world, and it's very throwaway, as my neighbour did, threw away her analog technology because she'd scanned all these slides, and so she didn't need them anymore. And yeah, I just felt very strange about her doing that. But yeah, it's about, you know, the book now. A lot of the libraries in our universities here have gotten rid of all their books, their physical books, and they've digitized them. So everything's this kind of thing. And when you think about what's going to happen in the future to that, you know, it seems like a very ephemeral way of documenting memories and history, and what's going to happen to that when we don't have a CD-ROM that we can read our DVD anymore, or, you know. And I think these slides are so important to hold on to. So
I think we have to give everyone a context. You live in a mid-century modern home with lots of things from the 1920s through 60s.
Oh, yeah, probably through to, yeah, more maybe 50s through to 80s, I think the home is. Yeah, but it's very kind of, well, people call this the Brady Bunch house, and it's very much like that.
and you also put drawings into the images. So we have something photographic that you've added drawn elements. Those are literally cut out and then pasted in, yeah?
Yeah, so I've either used some of Joy's slides, or I've used digital images, and I've also cut out bits of books. So I have the Little Lame Prince. So these are all the Peterkin Papers and Pinocchio and various other books. So all these books have got incredible illustrations in them. And they're really tiny little things, as you can tell from the slides. So I've cut those out and collaged them as well. And I've also done digital collage. So yes, it's just, I guess, creating these strange little stories within each slide.
I'm going to move to, I don't know if Kayla's with us, but related to this, I think now is if we have one of Kayla's videos, and they're actually.
I'm here. Sorry.
You are here, Kayla.
I'm here. Yes.
Lovely. Good. Kayla's
everybody.
a colleague. Hey. Can we show one of Kayla's, we'll show Kayla's work that's in the exhibition, and you don't have a video for this one, but you also use antiquated technology in the making of your work with letterpress, and Kayla loves letterpress. And so I was really happy to have several people engage with letterpress, but it was exciting in very different ways.
I do.
Your ribbons with the fortune cookies, were those letterpress printed?
They were actually not letterpress printed. So It's funny because that's how I like to treat most of my typography. However, I was exploring with a new kind of process that I've been working with, which is kind of crowdsourced art or crowdsourced making. So all of the fortunes actually that we see kind of dangling down, those were sourced from about 20 different countries. So I essentially use a system, make a request. In this instance, I said, hey, give me some words of wisdom or a fortune that's been passed down to you or that you've passed down. And I got some hilarious submissions, as one does when you ask questions of the internet. So I surprisingly did not submit letterpress work for this, but I was super glad to get this idea out of my brain and into this world.
This movement between hand and the digital, Kayla and I taught last semester together, and hearing Kayla speak about, to the students who just wanted to solve everything on the computer, to say, oh, well, here's how you could take this typographic problem, and you could do it with Sharpies, and you could start here and brainstorm, and now you can move to the digital. And so I know that you do that in your thinking, in your teaching. And if we could show, there's a number of videos, and I'm thinking the next to last one on the list is probably my favorite. Oh, we're getting that one. Okay. Nope. Got the whole list. Do you know which one I'm talking about, Kayla?
Well, we're looking for
there
that.
We go.
Is that the one?
I think
yeah.
so.
So these also were, it kind of started out as a joke of like the ASMR of letterpress, but it's now become something that I really love and appreciate.
So for folks who haven't seen letterpress, you have this, but the sounds are great with this too. And you make it look so easy and fast.
That's the upside of technology, for sure.
I was going to say, I've never printed anything that fast or arranged anything in a container that fast. And I have a letterpress. I've done letterpress. So I'm very impressed.
It's all a ruse. It's all a ruse. This was one of my crowning achievements, though, was doing a split fountain on a platen press, which I hadn't done before. And I did not find on Google before doing it. So...
Nice. So I'm going to move us to another group of artists here. So we've got a couple people we haven't heard from with this technology kind of how much you take, what you give, what you tap into the history. There were a number of people who worked with traditional printmaking and drawing, and I'm thinking about who's here. Cerise, you may be the only person in that group that's here tonight. I don't know if is Katie Christensen here as well? Or Joseph?
Katie's here.
Katie's here.
Joseph's here.
Oh, Joe, pop on. So if we could show Joe and Cerise's work and Katie's work, that'd be great. And have you talk about your decisions to... Joe, for you to make such traditional works, Cerise, for you to make these objects that are so print-based, but not in that I'm going to make 100 of them, but I'm making unique ones. And Katie, you have sort of that print drawing fusion with your work, and feel free to move back and forth. So we're looking at Joe's books here that are very text-driven and letterpress. And they really spoke well to Casey Gardner's work as well. And Joe, that was my favorite one. I love that little one. It's the simplest one in terms of the technology, but really beautiful with just its relationship of paper and print and image and text. Yeah, it's a poem.
Yeah, well, I wanted to speak briefly to the antiquated part of it too, if that's okay.
Please.
Because I think that as book artists, and so what I will say is I'm coming off of, I made a lot of books between 2005 and about 2013, and I transitioned for about 8 years into these large installational things that I thought of as books, but aren't books in any way, but they're narrative. I suppose like the narrative element of how a book turns and how you deal with it. And I'm now just getting back into books. And I sent you the first book I've made in I think 6 years, which was the concertina book. And I think as book artists, it's and printmakers, it's sometimes weird to think of us being antiquated because we don't oftentimes hear painters being antiquated or ceramicists being antiquated when their techniques are thousands of years older than ours. And I also think that like, it's just a hot second before that stuff gets sexy again, right? Like anybody who's dealing with letterpress knows that if you want to find a Vandercook at this point in time, you're paying 15, 20 grand for like a junker, maybe. And 25 years ago, that wasn't the case. You could get it for the cost of a U-Haul. Mm-hmm. And so the only reason this is antiquated is because somebody has the patent and won't let the process be like the machines be made. And this is a beautiful process. But when going into this book that you're seeing right now, what I argue with my students, because I deal a lot with graphic design students, is like, this is all polymer. So this is using 21st century technology. This is InDesign, Photoshop, and Illustrator being turned into polymer on handmade paper. And so I try to argue that instead of being antiquated or anachronistic, that what we're doing is keeping relevant the things that we've done into current society. So I view this as digital as it is letterpress, because I hand drew everything, I wrote everything, I made the paper, and then put it into the Adobe suite and fixed it up and laid it out and made film of it and then made polymer of it and then printed it. So I don't think we're dead yet. Is how I really feel in the world, and I get it. I do. Because I do tours of students and parents into our shop, and they're like, "Oh, this thing's from 1894, huh? Well, that's interesting." and what we have to do is say that it's amazing. This thing is 130 years old, and it works as good as the day that it was made, and it can utilize this stuff. And I wanted to say a while ago, Andrea was talking about libraries kind of digitizing everything. And that's another thing that I'm sorry, I'll shut up in just a second.
Oh no, this is good. Yeah.
No, the thing about that is, when we think about the histories of different book forms, from clay to rolls and scrolls to the codex to now, I mean, we're really only 40 years into the web and the internet. And all it's going to take is one weirdo electric thing to like shut everything down. We're getting really, really quick, really fast about like this being the next age of things. Those other things cultivated over the course of centuries and millennia. And we're in the babyest steps. Not to say that it's not going to be wonderful, but I don't think we should be putting all of our digital eggs in the web basket.
Cerise, Katie, do you want to add to that, or speak about your work in the context of this idea of technology and choosing traditional approaches?
I'm going to say that I feel really stupid following Joseph, because he was so succinct and clever about saying so much. So it's going to be a step down here talking to me. But I'm going to say the reason I use digital technology to work through compositions sometimes, and I've made wholly digital works. I've come into the book arts world a little sideways as an assemblage maker. I'm fascinated with the intimacy of objects that open and spin and turn and have hidden pockets. But I'm a traditional etcher and do relief. And I just can't let go of what printmaking does for translating my mark and making it a better, more interesting mark. And then I can make all these modules. I use printmaking to make modules that can be symbols in my work that I can use over and over in different combinations to tell a different story, if that makes sense. So I don't know, Mark, where I fall on your answer about how the old works with the new. I feel like I'm just personally drawn to my hand in things. and that process. I'm very process oriented. And so I love solving things as I go, but I don't eschew contemporary things. I mean, like I said, I use a lot of digital. I told you guys I would sound stupid after Joseph.
Well, you and Katie and Nick, all, there was something very profound about the work, and you kind of landed in the same place. And so I think that I don't know if it's my bias and who I invited, or working with those particular approaches have made these works that took on a religious format, or there was a certain kind of quietness about them, a certain kind of longing that we associate with religious art. And so, and there's Katie's, this is perfect. And there were several other people that sort of fell into that too. And I don't know if we have Alita. I don't think Alita's with us tonight, but Alita's work was certainly in that group as well. But Katie, do you want to speak to your decisions and how you worked and technology?
Yeah, I can chime in a little bit. You may hear a 5-year-old
little person,
background, just a heads up. But yeah, I think with regard to technology, especially, I think in my museum hat world, I feel like, especially in the last year, I've been on the computer way too much. And so in my studio practice, I wanted to come back to analog, I guess, if you will. And so drawing and painting and collage are a way for me to kind of be quiet in my own space. So there is a spiritual practice to it for me. And I think it allows me to connect with my body in ways that technology doesn't allow me to connect to my body, which are important kind of grounding practices. So I guess there are no digital aspects to these works. And that's, yeah. See, Cerise, I'm rambling more than you were.
Thanks for making me look good.
Yeah, no worries.
I am looking at the time, and it is just a few minutes before 7, and we want to sort of wind up at 7. So are there things that have bubbled up tonight that you'd like to have resolved, or additional questions? Especially the artists may have questions for each other. So anything that you'd like to put on the table? And Jennifer, is that your hand up?
Yes, it is my hand up.
Nice.
I wanted to just let everybody know I'm walking through the entrance gallery where we have our large display cases. So you can kind of see the context of the exhibit. So I just wanted to let people know I'm going to walk around the different exhibit spaces as we wrap up.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, for participating in the exhibition. It was so exciting to put the work up. Jennifer and I really, it took 2 days, and we really had a good time putting these up. Oh, Alicia, tell us, you fit into so many categories and we didn't touch on your work. Can you speak a little bit right now to many of these things?
Okay. I guess, there's two things about being involved in book arts that that keep bubbling up through no matter what the conversation is. One is like the interactivity of these objects and the intimacy is why I love book arts, one of the reasons. And the other thing is that for someone who is not necessarily top of the class in writing, painting, drawing, printmaking, I'm a hack in all of those fields, I get to combine all of these techniques and thoughts and make these beautiful objects and feel really proud of them in a way that I'm not able to feel really proud of a single painting, or I have pieces of writing that I'm proud of. But so for me, those are the two things about book arts that are so great: the interactive object sculpture qualities and just the kind of short attention span, being able to achieve something wonderful at the end of many days of work.
and so for Alicia, I have seen Alicia's work many, many times and enjoyed it. But it's like I'm the person that leaves the nose prints on the glass because I want to touch. And so I keep getting close. So it was a real joy to be able to handle your books and install them. So thank you. And for those of you who don't know Alicia, she's very involved in the Denver Book Arts world, and sort of, I see you as one of the leaders in the Denver area book arts area. So, and you have a gallery that's book arts related. So this is fantastic. So thank you.
What a fun world. And thank you for this exhibition. It's been awesome to be included.
Big group hug. And I will tell everybody before we leave here that the exhibition will come down August 10th. Around August 20th, it will be going to UCross, and UCross is associated with UCross Artist Residency. Their gallery is currently closed, and I didn't realize that when we took this on. And so I met with Tracy Keekett, and we went over to the space that she wants to put it in. I thought, oh, what? And I'd been by the space. It's the Raymond Planck Center. It is so much more perfect for what we're doing than the gallery space. And up on the top, you're seeing some other spaces, some of the books. So we'll be installing at the end of August, and I believe the 22nd, Sunday the 22nd, there'll be a bluegrass festival happening on the lawn outside the gallery, and people will be able to come in and see the work. So it's gonna go up the 20th, 21st, early morning, the 22nd. We're gonna get it finished, and I'll be ready to fly at UCross. And it's a very different audience. It's very close to Gentile Artist Residency and UCross and outside of Sheridan. So there'll be lots of folks coming by to see your work there. And then it will finish up at the University of Wyoming, where it will be in an academic environment. So this is just the beginning. So this is exciting. Again, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Carrie, and the whole library staff for making this happen. And stay tuned. And thanks for taking time tonight. This was really, really wonderful. Thank you.